Sarah Thompson seemed like an ordinary beauty therapist, with a bright future and a baby on the way. But beneath her calm exterior was a secret life that spiraled into a dangerous world of cocaine trafficking. How did a pregnant woman, juggling bills and dreams, become the mastermind of a drug empire? This is the shocking true story of Sarah's double life, where every choice pushed her closer to the edge and nearly destroyed everything she held dear. Sarah's life looked perfect on the surface. She was a beauty therapist in a small but bustling town, known for her skillful touch and friendly smile. Her clients adored her, not just because she made them look good, but because she made them feel special. The salon where she worked was her sanctuary, a place filled with soft music, scented candles, and the hum of everyday chatter. Here, Sarah found a sense of peace, even as her body changed with her pregnancy. Every morning, she would arrive early to prepare for the day, balancing the demands of her growing belly and the appointments she couldn't afford to miss. Behind this calm exterior, however, Sarah's world was far from perfect. Her bills were stacking up faster than she could handle. Rent was overdue, the utility companies were calling, and her partner's income wasn't enough to cover all their expenses. The looming arrival of their baby added an extra layer of pressure, making every dollar feel even more precious. Sarah wanted to believe that things would get better, that she could keep everything under control, but with every passing week, the weight of her financial worries grew heavier. Despite the challenges, Sarah refused to let her clients see her struggle. She stayed professional, always wearing her trademark smile and offering gentle encouragement to women who came in looking for a little self-care and confidence. To them, she was a symbol of strength and hope, a woman who managed her life with grace and determination. Few could guess that beneath this image was a woman who felt increasingly desperate and trapped by her circumstances. Sarah's pregnancy added complexity to her life in ways she hadn't anticipated. Morning sickness made some days difficult, and fatigue often took over by afternoon. Yet she pushed herself to work longer hours, hoping to save enough to provide a safe home for her child. She was determined not to ask for help from anyone outside her immediate family, believing that independence was the only way to maintain her dignity. But the strain was obvious in her tired eyes and the way she sometimes caught herself staring blankly at bills and overdue notices. Her partner tried to be supportive, but his own job was unstable and the stress was beginning to take its toll on their relationship. They argued less and less, communicating mostly through tense silence. Sarah often found herself alone in the small apartment they shared, wondering how things had come to this point. She had always been cautious, careful to avoid anything risky or dangerous. The last thing she wanted was to jeopardize the future of her unborn child. Still, the pressure kept mounting, and Sarah began to look for options she had never considered before. She scoured the internet for part-time jobs and side gigs, but with her pregnancy and salon hours, few opportunities were realistic. The fear of failure gnawed at her, and for the first time she felt the creeping influence of desperation, an emotion she had never truly known until now. At the salon, life went on as usual, but Sarah's thoughts were elsewhere. She worried about rent, utilities, and groceries. She worried about the baby's health and how she would manage once maternity leave started. Each day was a careful balancing act between the world she showed her clients and the reality she hid deep inside. Then, on a gloomy afternoon, everything began to change. A stranger entered the salon, a woman with an easy smile and an air of confidence that Sarah found intriguing. This woman, Nina, didn't just want to talk about beauty or makeup. She hinted at opportunities that sounded too good to be true. For Sarah, worn down by worry and desperation, this was the moment her carefully controlled life started to unravel. Unaware of the dangerous path ahead, she found herself opening the door to a world that promised relief but delivered chaos. The perfect life Sarah had worked so hard to maintain was about to shatter, piece by fragile piece. The day Nina walked into the salon, everything felt different, though Sarah didn't realize it right away. Nina was unlike anyone Sarah had met before. She carried herself with a confidence that seemed almost magnetic. Her sharp eyes missed nothing, and there was a mysterious charm about her that made people want to listen. Sarah noticed how quickly Nina blended into the busy atmosphere of the salon, chatting easily with the staff and clients, and offering helpful tips on makeup and skincare. It was as if she had been part of the place for months, not just a newcomer passing through. Nina's presence brought a strange kind of energy to the salon. Sarah found herself drawn to her stories about traveling, new experiences, and the exciting life she claimed to live. Nina didn't just talk about beauty products or the latest trends, she hinted at a world full of luxury, fast money and connections that Sarah had never encountered before. At first Sarah was skeptical. She had always been cautious, especially since discovering she was pregnant. But Nina had a way of making everything sound possible, even the things that seemed too risky to consider. As days passed, their conversations grew more personal. Nina listened carefully to Sarah's worries about money, the bills, and the struggle to keep her small business afloat. She didn't judge or offer empty advice. Instead, Nina spoke calmly about opportunities that could solve Sarah's problems quickly. Opportunities that sounded too good to be true, but came with promises that were hard to ignore. Sarah's defenses weakened with each meeting, and her desperation made her more willing to believe in Nina's words. Nina's offer was simple but dangerous. She explained that she was connected to people who needed trusted individuals to move packages discreetly. Packages that she assured Sarah wouldn't put her at risk if she was careful. The money was good, much better than any part-time job Sarah had found. It was a chance to clear her debts and provide for her baby without struggling day to day. The idea of quick cash in exchange for a small favor was tempting, but Sarah's mind raced with warnings. She knew this wasn't the kind of help she had ever wanted, but her reality left little room for choice. Nina was patient and persuasive, never pushing too hard but always making it clear that Sarah was being given a rare chance. She said the job required trust and secrecy, two things Sarah had always valued. It was a test, Nina said, and if Sarah proved reliable, more opportunities would come. This offer didn't just seem like a way out of trouble, it felt like an invitation into a secret world where Sarah could be more than just a struggling beauty therapist. The idea of control, power, and financial freedom flickered in her mind. At home, Sarah wrestled with her conscience. She imagined what her family would say if they knew the truth. She thought about the unborn child she was carrying, and the life she wanted to build for them. Yet the weight of unpaid bills and the fear of losing everything clouded her judgment. That night she lay awake wondering if accepting Nina's offer was a mistake or the only way forward. Within weeks, the friendship between Sarah and Nina grew deeper. Nina seemed to understand Sarah's fears and hopes in a way no one else did. She brought a sense of excitement to Sarah's life, a stark contrast to the dull worry that had filled her days. Sarah began to see Nina as more than a stranger. She was a lifeline, a key to a future that once seemed impossible. But beneath the surface of this new bond, shadows were gathering. Nina's world was dangerous, and every step Sarah took closer to it pulled her further from the safe life she had known. The choices ahead were no longer about beauty treatments or baby clothes. They were about survival, trust, and secrets that could destroy everything. The mysterious new friend had arrived, and with her came a path Sarah couldn't turn away from, no matter how much she wanted to. The first time Sarah agreed to help Nina, it didn't feel like a big deal. Nina had been careful in her approach, making sure Sarah understood that the task was simple and low risk. She explained that it was just about moving a small package from one place to another, nothing illegal, or at least that's what Sarah wanted to believe. The package was discreetly wrapped, and Nina assured her it wouldn't attract any attention. Sarah told herself she was just doing a favor for a friend, someone who had been kind when she was struggling. But beneath the surface, Sarah's world had already begun to shift. The pressure from bills and the fear of being unable to provide for her baby weighed heavily on her mind. She felt cornered, with limited options. The job seemed like a lifeline, a quick solution to her growing financial crisis. She rationalized that this one time wouldn't change who she was or what she stood for. It was just a small risk, nothing more. The package was hidden inside an ordinary-looking box, and Sarah took great care to blend in as she transported it. She kept her movements natural, choosing routes and times when fewer people would notice her. Her heart raced as she carried the box, but she told herself to stay calm. After all, she was just a beauty therapist, a soon-to-be mother. Nothing like the criminals she imagined were involved in this shadowy world. When she delivered the package, the person on the other end was quick and efficient. There was no time for questions or small talk. The transaction was brief, professional, and Sarah was relieved to have completed the task without incident. She left the meeting spot feeling a mix of adrenaline and guilt. For a moment she wondered if she had made a mistake, but the money she received was enough to cover weeks of rent and bills. That practical benefit overshadowed her doubts. In the days that followed, Sarah found it harder to push the experience from her mind. The thrill of secrecy mixed with the fear of getting caught created a strange tension inside her. She noticed herself becoming more cautious, but also strangely empowered by the knowledge that she could handle something so risky. It was a secret world where she felt she had some control, a feeling that was scarce in her daily life. Nina checked in often, subtly encouraging Sarah to keep helping. She painted a picture of steady work, more packages, and growing earnings. Nina insisted that Sarah had the right instincts, and that this was just the beginning of a better life. Sarah wanted to believe it was true. She clung to the hope that this secret job would remain just that, a quiet way to fix her problems without causing harm. But with every package Sarah moved, the reality became harder to ignore. The packages were not just harmless items, they contained cocaine, a fact Nina never revealed outright but that Sarah slowly suspected. The people involved were not ordinary couriers or business people. They were part of a dangerous network with rules enforced by threats and violence. Sarah began to understand that she was no longer just doing a favor, she was involved in something illegal and risky, something that could destroy her life if she was caught. The double life she was starting to lead brought new stress. Sarah was still caring for her pregnancy and running the salon, but now there was an added layer of secrecy and fear. She learned to keep her phone close, deleted messages quickly, and avoided asking too many questions. The boundaries between her two worlds began to blur, and the tightrope she walked grew more dangerous. Yet despite the growing danger, Sarah kept moving the packages. The money was too important, the debts too pressing, and the baby's future too uncertain. The first step into this dark world had become a path she couldn't easily turn back from. With each decision, she sank deeper, caught between the life she dreamed of and the shadows she was now part of. By day Sarah was the caring beauty therapist her clients adored. She moved through her salon with practiced ease, greeting each person with warmth and making them feel special. Her hands, skilled in the art of relaxation and transformation, worked tirelessly on faces and skin, smoothing away worries and stress for others, even as her own anxiety grew heavier with every passing hour. Her pregnancy was becoming more visible now, the small curve of her belly a constant reminder of the life she was bringing into the world. Yet Sarah carried on as if nothing was wrong, refusing to let her clients see the cracks forming beneath her calm exterior. By night, everything changed. The soft hum of the salon was replaced by whispers and hurried conversations in hidden corners. Sarah's phone became a lifeline and a weapon, a device to receive coded messages, directions and instructions from Nina and others in the network. She had become more than just a courier. The small favors she once did had grown into a complex role involving coordination, scheduling, and managing multiple contacts. Each package she moved now came with added risks, and every meeting was laced with the danger of discovery. Balancing these two lives was exhausting. During the day she smiled and reassured clients about their skin and beauty routines. At night she found herself calculating routes, memorizing license plates, and planning how to avoid police checkpoints. The tension between these worlds gnawed at her, creating a constant fear that someone would see through her carefully crafted disguise. Her salon had become a place of refuge and a source of stress all at once. Sarah was acutely aware that being pregnant made her more vulnerable. The physical demands of the secret life she was leading weighed on her body, making her tired and uneasy. She had to be extra careful not to raise suspicion, especially as her belly grew and people around her began to know. She could not afford to let anyone suspect that she was involved in anything illegal. Every smile she gave clients, every casual chat was a carefully rehearsed act. Despite the danger, the money was changing her life. Bills that once seemed impossible to pay were now settled quickly, and the fear of eviction faded. Sarah even managed to start saving a little for her child's future. The financial relief was a powerful motivator, helping her push aside doubts and guilt, but it also tied her tighter to the world she was trying to keep secret. The people Sarah dealt with in the trafficking ring were unpredictable. Some were one suspect that she was involved in anything illegal. Every smile she gave clients, every casual chat was a carefully rehearsed act. Despite the danger, The money was changing her life. Bills that once seemed impossible to pay were now settled quickly, and the fear of eviction faded. Sarah even managed to start saving a little for her child's future. The financial relief was a powerful motivator, helping her push aside doubts and guilt, but it also tied her tighter to the world she was trying to keep secret. The people Sarah dealt with in the trafficking ring were unpredictable. Some were friendly and professional, others cold and threatening. Sarah learned to read the subtle signs of danger, a glance too sharp, a tone too harsh. The network was built on trust, but trust was fragile and often broken by greed and fear. Sarah had to stay alert at all times, knowing one mistake could mean everything crashing down. Her relationship suffered. Friends who noticed her growing absences and sudden mood swings began to ask questions Sarah wasn't ready to answer. Her partner, once a source of comfort, grew distant as the secrets between them deepened. The silence between them became heavier with each passing day. Sarah felt isolated, trapped between the life she wanted and the choices she had made. Still, Sarah convinced herself she was in control. She told herself that this was temporary, that once the baby was born and the debts cleared, she could walk away. But the truth was more complicated. Each package, each meeting, pulled her deeper into a world she didn't fully understand, but couldn't escape. The danger was growing, and with law enforcement starting to take notice, Sarah's carefully balanced double life was beginning to unravel. The thrill of power, the rush of secrecy, and the promise of money created a potent mix that clouded her judgment. Sarah was no longer just a beauty therapist. She was a key player in a cocaine trafficking operation, pregnant, vulnerable, and caught in a dangerous game with no easy way out. As the weeks went by, Sarah's involvement in the drug operation deepened far beyond what she had ever imagined. What started as moving small packages became a complex and demanding role in a growing network. Nina's promises of steady income were coming true, but the reality was harsher than Sarah expected. She found herself juggling not only her pregnancy and her beauty therapy business, but also the escalating demands of managing shipments and contact. The small favor had turned into a full-time secret responsibility, one that threatened to consume her. Sarah's role expanded to coordinating multiple deliveries across the city. She was no longer just a courier. She was organizing routes, scheduling pickups, and even recruiting a few trusted contacts to help manage the increasing volume. Each day brought new challenges, avoiding police patrols, negotiating with wary intermediaries, and keeping her activities hidden from friends and family. The stakes were rising fast, and with every successful delivery, Sarah's confidence grew, but so did her fear. The money flowing in was more than enough to cover her bills, and for the first time in months, Sarah felt a glimpse of hope. She paid off overdue rent, cleared medical bills, and started setting aside savings for the baby's future. The financial relief was intoxicating. For a moment, it felt like she had found a way out of her struggles, a way to regain control over her life. But that feeling was always shadowed by the knowledge that she was walking a dangerous line. Sarah's pregnancy was becoming harder to manage alongside her secret life. Physical exhaustion weighed on her body, and she experienced moments of fear for her unborn child's safety. Yet she pushed herself harder, determined not to show weakness to the people around her, or the dangerous individuals she worked with. Every day was a careful balancing act between protecting her baby and maintaining her role in the trafficking operation. The people Sarah worked with were a mix of professionals and criminals, each with their own motivations and temperament. Some treated her with respect, acknowledging her efforts and reliability. Others were harsh, reminding her that trust was fragile and could be broken at any moment. Sarah learned quickly that one wrong move could have deadly consequences. Threats, subtle warnings and signs of betrayal were always lurking beneath the surface. She stayed alert, always cautious not to give away more than necessary. Her salon, once a peaceful refuge, now felt like a pressure cooker. Clients sensed her stress, and some close friends grew concerned about the changes they saw in her. Sarah had little time or energy to explain herself, so she withdrew, emotionally, creating distance between herself and those who cared. Her partner, overwhelmed and confused by her secrecy, drifted further away, leaving Sarah feeling more isolated than ever. Despite the risks, Sarah clung to the hope that this life was temporary. She convinced herself that once the baby was born and her debts were paid, she could leave it all behind. But each successful delivery and new contact only tightened the web around her. The more money she made, the harder it became to step away. The pressure mounted as law enforcement activity increased. Rumors of police investigations and raids began to circulate within the trafficking network. Sarah knew it was only a matter of time before the law closed in. Still, she kept moving forward, driven by fear, desperation, and a fierce desire to protect her child's future. Her world was changing fast. What had begun as a simple favor had grown into a dangerous empire, one that Sarah struggled to control even as it consumed her. The life she once dreamed of was slipping away, replaced by a new reality filled with secrecy, fear, and the constant threat of disaster. As Sarah's involvement in the cocaine trafficking ring grew, so did the cracks in her carefully maintained facade. Those closest to her began to notice changes that she couldn't fully hide. Her once bright and open demeanor dimmed, replaced by moments of anxiety and distraction. Clients who had admired her warmth sensed something was off, but when they asked, Sarah offered vague excuses: stress from the pregnancy, exhaustion, or personal worries she wasn't ready to share. Friends and family, however, grew more concerned. Sarah had always been dependable and open, but now she was increasingly secretive, avoiding social gatherings and phone calls. Her partner, struggling to understand the growing distance between them, tried to reach out, but Sarah deflected every attempt. The tension in their relationship deepened, and the silence between them became more suffocating with each passing day. Sarah was isolated, trapped behind walls built from lies and fear. More troubling was the sudden appearance of unexplained cash and gifts. Sarah began spending money on things she never would have considered before: new clothes, baby items, small luxuries for the salon. The sudden influx of cash raised eyebrows among those who knew her well. Questions started to come, sometimes subtle, sometimes direct, but Sarah was careful to deflect and change the subject. She kept her secret tightly guarded, afraid that revealing even a sliver of the truth would unravel everything. At the same time, Sarah sensed that law enforcement was closing in. She had heard rumors, quiet whispers of police surveillance and investigations targeting the trafficking network. It was no longer just a distant threat. The danger was immediate and pressing. The people she worked with grew more cautious, their behavior tense and guarded. Sarah felt the noose tightening, the walls closing in on her double life. Despite the mounting pressure, Sarah tried to maintain normalcy. She kept up with her salon appointments, and prepared for the arrival of her baby, though every ultrasound and doctor's visit was shadowed by worry. How would her life change if she was caught? What would happen to her child? These questions haunted her, but she pushed them aside, focusing instead on survival. Her trust in Nina, the woman who had introduced her to this dark world, began to waver. Nina's visits became less frequent and more secret. When Sarah pressed for answers, Nina deflected or offered vague reassurances. The warmth that had once defined their friendship cooled, replaced by suspicion and unease. Sarah realized that in this dangerous game, trust was a rare and fragile commodity, often broken when least expected. At the salon, small incidents started to raise concern. Sarah misplaced important documents, forgot appointments, and sometimes appeared startled by sudden noises or unexpected visitors. Her coworkers noticed but said little, unsure whether to pry or respect her privacy. Sarah's exhaustion was evident, and the strain of living a double life was taking its toll on her health and spirit. Her partner, desperate for answers, confronted her one night, but Sarah's silence was unyielding. The distance between them widened, and with it, Sarah's sense of isolation deepened. She was caught in a storm of fear, guilt and uncertainty, unsure who to trust or where to turn. As the walls around her tightened, Sarah knew she was running out of time. The life she had once dreamed of, a safe home, a loving family, a thriving business, was slipping further away. Each secret, each lie, pushed her closer to a breaking point. The facade was cracking, and with every crack, the risk of collapse grew. Sarah's world was unraveling. The carefully woven threads of her double life were beginning to come undone, threatening to expose the shocking truth hidden beneath the surface. The next steps she took could change everything, forever. The tension in Sarah's life was reaching a breaking point. Each day felt like walking a tightrope stretched thin between her two worlds, one filled with the gentle routine of beauty treatments and baby preparations, the other shadowed by danger, secrecy and fear. The fragile balance was slipping, and Sarah knew it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. One evening, as Sarah prepared to close the salon after a long day, a sudden knock at the door made her heart race. She wasn't expecting anyone, especially at this late hour. Peering through the window, she saw a man she vaguely recognized,
one of the less friendly contacts from the trafficking ring. His cold stare sent a chill through her, and Sarah instantly knew this was no ordinary visit. The man handed her a sealed envelope without a word, and turned to leave. Inside were photographs, images of Sarah moving packages, meeting with suspicious people, and even pictures of her at the salon with Nina. It was clear that someone was watching her closely, keeping track of her every move. The message was unmistakable. The stakes had risen and there was no room for mistakes. Panic surged through Sarah, but she forced herself to stay calm. She knew she had to be careful, but the growing fear made her reckless in small ways, forgetting to clear her phone of messages, pausing too long in certain places, letting her guard slip. The people she was dealing with were dangerous, and their patience was running thin. At home, the strain was crushing. Her partner's growing suspicions and unanswered questions filled the space between them like a thick fog.
The courtroom was a stark contrast to the life Sarah had once known. The polished wood, the solemn faces, the heavy silence weighed on her as she sat waiting for her fate to be decided. The trial was a brutal spotlight on her double life, laying bare the secrets she had fought so hard to keep hidden. Every detail of her involvement in the cocaine trafficking ring was presented in cold, hard facts, evidence gathered by law enforcement, testimonies from witnesses, and the photographs that had haunted her since the day the envelope arrived. Sarah listened quietly as the prosecution painted her as a key player in a dangerous drug operation. The judge's stern gaze and the jury's attentive faces made it clear how seriously the court took the charges. For many, Sarah's story was shocking. A pregnant woman, once a trusted beauty therapist, now accused of running a cocaine empire. The contrast between who she was and who she had become was almost impossible to reconcile. Her defense lawyer worked tirelessly to humanize her, emphasizing her financial desperation, her lack of previous criminal behavior, and her role as a mother to be. They argued that Sarah had been manipulated and coerced by more experienced criminals, portraying her as a victim caught in circumstances beyond her control. The lawyer stressed her efforts to cooperate with authorities once arrested and her willingness to turn her life around. Despite these efforts, the evidence was overwhelming. Testimonies detailed the scale of the operation, and experts explained the serious dangers and societal impact of cocaine trafficking. The judge's questions were sharp, and Sarah felt the weight of judgment pressing down on her from all sides. The public scrutiny made it impossible to separate the person from the crime, and the media frenzy only intensified the pressure. Throughout the trial, Sarah struggled with her own feelings, shame, fear, and regret mixed with a fierce determination to protect her unborn child. The courtroom was a place of harsh realities, but also of hope for a second chance. Every day brought new challenges, but it also brought a clearer understanding of what she needed to do to rebuild her life. Outside the courtroom, the world reacted strongly. Some people condemned her without knowing the full story, while others expressed sympathy for a woman pushed to desperate measures. The community around her was divided. Some still remembered the friendly, caring beauty therapist, while others saw only the headline-grabbing scandal. The media's portrayal added a layer of complexity, turning her personal tragedy into public spectacle. Sarah's partner and a few close friends remained by her side, offering quiet support despite their confusion and hurt. Their presence was a fragile thread of hope, reminding her that not all bridges had been burned. They believed in her capacity to change and wanted to help her find a way forward, even if the path was steep and uncertain. As the trial progressed, Sarah found strength in unexpected places. Support groups for pregnant women in difficult circumstances, counseling sessions offered by the detention center, and the small acts of kindness from lawyers and guards helped her face the future with a flicker of hope. She began to see the possibility of redemption, not just in court, but in life beyond the charges. The verdict loomed ahead, a moment that would define the next chapter of Sarah's story. Whether it brought freedom or punishment, she knew her life would never be the same. But deep inside, a quiet resolve was growing, a determination to fight for her child, to rebuild her reputation, and to find a way out of the shadows that had swallowed her. In the courtroom's tense silence, Sarah prepared herself for whatever came next. Her journey had been painful and fraught with mistakes, but it was far from over. The battle for her future was just beginning. The day of the verdict arrived with a heavy sense of finality hanging in the air. Sarah sat in the courtroom, her hands resting gently on her growing belly, feeling the life inside her as a steady reminder of what was at stake. The room was filled with anticipation and tension. Family members, reporters, law enforcement officers, and strangers all waiting to hear the judge's decision that would shape her future and that of her unborn child. As the judge began to speak, Sarah's heart pounded. The weight of the past months, the fear, the secrecy, the loss pressed down on her like never before. She listened intently, trying to hold on to hope while bracing for whatever came next. The judge acknowledged the seriousness of the crimes, but also recognized the unique circumstances of Sarah's pregnancy and her efforts to cooperate after her arrest. After careful consideration, the court handed down a sentence that was both firm and tempered with compassion. Sarah was given a reduced prison term with the possibility of serving part of her sentence under house arrest after giving birth. The decision reflected the court's recognition of her vulnerability and the importance of her role as a mother. It was not a complete exoneration, but it was a chance to rebuild, to heal, and to create a new path forward. In the weeks that followed, Sarah was moved from the detention center to a supervised residential facility designed to support pregnant women and new mothers. The environment was far gentler than the harsh prison she had known, offering medical care, counseling, and a community of women facing similar struggles. For the first time in months, Sarah felt a fragile sense of hope take root. The birth of her child was a bittersweet milestone. It brought overwhelming joy and profound responsibility, but it also underscored the challenges ahead. Sarah was determined to be a good mother, to provide a life free from the mistakes of her past. The child became a symbol of renewal and strength, a beacon guiding her through the darkest moments. As she settled into her new life, Sarah began to take steps toward redemption. She engaged in therapy to address the choices that led her down the dangerous path of drug trafficking. She worked with social workers and support groups to build a stable environment for her child. Slowly, she reconnected with family and a few friends who had stood by her, learning to rebuild trust and relationships fractured by secrecy and betrayal. The salon she once owned remained closed, but Sarah dreamed of returning to her profession one day. Beauty therapy had been more than a job, it had been a source of pride and identity. Reclaiming that part of herself became a goal, a sign of reclaiming control over her life. Despite the challenges, Sarah refused to be defined by her mistakes. She used her story to warn others about the dangers of desperation and the deceptive lure of easy money. Her experience became a powerful lesson about resilience, courage, and the possibility of change. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with obstacles and moments of doubt, but Sarah faced it with a new sense of purpose. She knew that mistakes from the past could not be erased, but they could be learned from. Her child was a constant reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could grow. Sarah's journey from a pregnant beauty therapist to a cocaine trafficker, then to a mother fighting for a fresh start, was a story of human complexity, vulnerability, and strength. It was a story that would stay with those who heard it, a reminder that beneath every headline, there is a person struggling to find their way. In the quiet moments, holding her baby close, Sarah found the courage to believe in a better future, one built on honesty, love, and hard-earned redemption.